Hi, I'm going to be talking about hype-driven development because I feel hooks, memo, all of the stuff that's coming into React is all about hype. I mean, the moment it comes, we all have hype about it and we start using it in our apps and we want to migrate it. So that's why instead of React hooks, I've kept the topic name as hype-driven development. You all believe it? Yeah?
People using hooks when it was in alpha.
Yeah.
Sure. So a bit about me. I'm Manjula. I'm a web engineer at N26. I mostly work on React, JavaScript, GraphQL, Node, and we are hiring. So we are in Barcelona, New York, and yeah. I mean, how many of you know about N26? So I don't have to say. For those of you who don't know, it's a digital bank. So we are now in New York. We just launched in US as well, in UK as well. So we are all over. So yeah, just go and get your account done. To say, right now the ecosystem looks something like this. So we were in the past using HOC, higher order components, random props, and now we all are moving towards hooks. But what's the reason? There has to be some reason all around why people are moving towards hooks. Is it just the hype, or do you really know what's all over it? So let's just discuss that today. What is happening with the ecosystem is people want to move very fast. So when React came, people were using Angular. They want to migrate to React. They started working with React. But then in React, the ecosystem is so fast that every year there is new updates and people want to. So the developer's life is something like this. So today we're going to be talking about hooks. 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 Yeah. How many are happy about it?
Kind of.
Kind of. How many of you are using hooks in production?
In production? So.
I like you, man. Yeah, so we also use it in production. We just started like 1 month back, but yes, we are using it. Let me quickly go through the problems that we had. Like why we switched on to using hooks from the traditional method of classes. Like there has to be some reason. Right? So I would say classes were confusing, but there has to be some reason why classes were confusing. Was it just to create a component, or what was the actual reason? So to start with, if I have to talk about classes, how many of you have gone through the trouble of this? Same here. Like when you start with React, you would know that you have to bind your functions in your constructor, and then if you're using arrow function, you're saved. But if not, you have to bind your methods in your constructor. So this is the first thing which hooks will simplify for you. Secondly, what we also got from hooks is unused methods were not stripped during compile time, but hooks does it for us. What was the third thing is, if you see about the lifecycle methods like component did update, component did mount, all of these stuff were not minified when you were minifying your bundle using Webpack. But hooks does it for you, because you will see in some time that you no more have to use all of those stuff. And the other part was, while you were using classes, hot reloading was quite a problem. So these were the things that a React core team actually understood, and they were working on it like from past 1 year, and then they thought, okay, let's release something that would help us make React developers more productive. So I would now show you that what was the actual problem. So if you see, how many of you know about the wrapper head? Like, what's the component wrapper head? So I'll show you the picture and you'll be shocked. But just to say that, if you start working with React, most of your logic either lies in your lifecycle methods, right? So like let's say you want to render something, you want to get the data from the API, you would do it in component did mount, you would get the data and you would show it, right? And what happens is in this case, in this case what happens is all of the wrappers and all of the props that you're using, it creates something like this. If you see in your React Dev tools, it would look something like this. That's basically called as wrapper hell, component wrapper hell. And this is one of the reasons which React hooks would solve. So I hope you got what is wrapper hell. Next we move on. What hooks gives us. So the first thing which hooks gives us is useState. So in this, you'll be using no classes, no wrappers. Component can simply use hooks, and you will be able to use the state. So what you used to do before was to access state, you had to use classes, and then you used to define this dot state, right? What hooks gives you is, okay, I'm talking so much, and I understand that talks are like cheap, so you want to see some code, right? Yeah? So this is what your traditional class component would look like. Like this is a very simple example. I don't want to like create a very hyper example so that people get confused. So this is a very small example which shows you increment and decrement. So you have your class methods, which is handle decrement, handle increment, and you have your state, right? Initially your state is, say the count variable is set to 0, and you're doing something in render. The same thing, how would you do it in hooks? Is you would say, oh, okay, I have a variable, and I have a method, set count, and useState has, we can pass an argument to useState, which is not necessarily an object, which is a good thing. Because this dot state always expected us to pass an object. But now here, you say useState, and you pass the 0 value for the count, and you say, okay, the initial value is 0. And you can pass anything. You can pass number, you can pass object, you can pass anything you want. And now what you do is, you have a method, you do the same thing, okay, you want to increment, you want to decrement, and then you can use it. So basically, the entire funda of using the classes is now gone, and you could simply use the state in your functional component. How many of you started working on React, they made a functional component, and then because suddenly something came up, they wanted to add states, they actually moved their functional component to class components? A lot of times, right? We do this a lot of times. And this is one of the things which is now, given to us like a power. It's like you use your state using functional component. This is the first thing which hooks solve. And trust me, like, I would not say that you should use it. Just use it based on your resources and also the time. So now at N26 we are using it because we have one team who's just working on user research things. Like, they work on migrating and moving towards upgrading the technologies. So it's not that, things should be used because of hype. Okay, I want to migrate today. No, stop that. Just migrate when you have time, you have resources. Good. So this is what we saw in the previous example. This is what we do. We have count, the variable, and the set count as the way you do the set state, right? So this is set count. Here you basically set your count, and yeah. So you use. So basically you know now how to use state. So useState is one of the hooks. Next, we move on to effect hook. So what is effect hooks? So what happened was, currently when we want to do something after render is done, we would need to put the logic in component did mount, or maybe component did update. This is what we did. But now, since UseEffect came into picture, we do something like this. So what we do is we do the same thing, but in function. So if you say the previous example, we did something in component did mount and component did update. And why I did at both the places is because component did update doesn't get called after the initial render. We would need to implement the same logic inside the component did mount. So you need to do at both the places if you want to do something. So this is what, when you use UseEffect hook, you do in a functional component, not the traditional class component. You use the functional component and use effect, and basically whatever you want to do in your component did mount or did update, you would do it here. So the UseEffect hook also accepts an array as a second argument. In case what happens here is, let's say you want the effect to be run only one times, when you want the effect to be run only once. So what you would do is you would pass it as a second argument as an array. So the rerun of the effect will happen only when the count changes, when the count variable changes. So this is taken care of. This is a quote by me. So what I said is that make the world a better place for React developers by using hooks. But that doesn't mean you just go right now today and tell your boss, okay, I need 1 week and I'm going to convert everything, every class component into hooks. Because I was shocked when hooks came into picture. I could just see on Twitter, I changed this to this, I changed this to this. I mean, it's okay. You can't start working all together just today. I mean, it takes time. You have time, take the resources. If you have resources, then start working on it. So this is my quote, which I believe, yes. I mean, for me, hook helped us, and for us as an organization, we are moving to convert our class component to hooks. So one of the better things why I would use hooks, only then I would tell you and recommend you to use hooks, is, in my opinion, for us it only helped us to, when you minify your code, the bundle size was actually reduced. So this was one of the use case where we thought, okay, why not? Bundle is everything in every company. So when the bundle size is reduced, why not use it? I will just show you a small example because I cannot put my company code here. Just a small example. What I saw is using HOC, the minified version was 3.5 KB, and using hooks, the same counter example was 2.47 KB. So, I mean, this is not a very huge difference. But when you think in terms of your production app, it creates a lot of difference. Right? I mean, writing 150 lines to 174 is not that big difference again. But then when you start doing it for all of your class components, it might turn out to be a huge difference. So, smaller bundles, all of us want smaller bundles, right? Yes? No? Yes? Yeah? No? Nobody wants smaller bundles.
Yeah. Please, smaller bundle.
Yeah. So I hope I convinced you. Like, you must be having this question: can I use React hooks yet? Yes, use it. Why not? Use it. Go and use it. Some rules to follow, but there's always a workaround. So yeah, there's always a workaround. So it's not like, the rules are rules, okay, if this is not satisfied, I can't work there's always a workaround. So hooks can only be called at the top level, and it can only be called in the React functions. By functions, I mean it can be called in React functions and not JavaScript functions. So, do hooks cover all the use cases for classes? Yes. Some, probably somewhere yes, but somewhere no as well, because they're still working on a few things like get derived states. There is no alternative method yet. Get snapshot, there's no alternative method yet. They're still working on. So the React team knows that these are something that they're still working on, and that is why whenever somebody, if you're there on Twitter, you will always see that whenever they release something, they say, okay, we're releasing this, but we highly recommend that not to use this in production. Right? They say that with every release. Because they're working on something and they don't want you to get stuck at some point and say, okay, this thing doesn't work. So they're working on these two methods. So get snapshot before update. There's no alternative in React hooks yet. And component did catch. These two methods, there is no alternative in React hooks yet. They're still working on it. I would suggest you, so this is one of the link which I would not like to open because there are a lot of stuff in it. You could go and check out. This is one of the stuff built internally by one of my colleagues at N26. What we did is to use new context API along with hooks. We created a sort of not component actually. We created a sort of helper which says hooks into props. So you could go and check out. Also, a lot of people are like, as soon as hooks got released, a lot of people started creating usehooks.com where a lot of custom hooks are being built. So you could also check out this. Maybe the hooks that you want to use is already present here, because a lot of people, what they do is when they create something, they also publish it on NPM. So you could just go and use it, like a sort of helper or some sort of stuff. So yeah, you could check out this website for custom hooks. A lot of things are there here. So you could also have some idea like how people are working in the entire community. Some key takeaways? No? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so some key takeaways are component did mount, component did update, and component will mount. The UseEffect hook which I showed can express all of these combinations. So all of these three are the alternatives to UseEffect. Second, should component update, which I'll be talking about in a few minutes. So you could use react.memo. So should component update, how many of you know why is it used for? Basically why it is used for is when you create a class component, let's say, and you want to only render your component when there is a prop change. So you basically set this should component update, or maybe you extend your class to pure component. So react.memo does this within functional component, using functional component. So it doesn't matter for it that you should use class component or not. One more thing is a constructor. So definitely you could use useState call, so no need of constructor. And what I mentioned before, that component did catch and get derived state from errors. Sorry, no, that's wrong. Mistake on the slide. So component did catch and get derived state from props, and one more method. What was the third one?
Snapshot.
Yes, get snapshot for update. These three methods the React team is still working on. So there will be soon some alternative for them as well. So yeah, the thing I spoke about, react.memo. So what used to happen before is, maybe I don't have it. Oh, I don't have an example. Okay. So what used to happen before is we used to basically extend the component with pure component to see, okay, whether the component should render. Basically, it used to work like the component will only render if the prop change. So you basically extend it with pure component. But now, since in functional component, what you could do is something like this. So it will only render if the props have changed. So what you do is basically wrap it around React.memo. So hooks is all about getting you done all your stuff in functional component. Rather than in your class component, it gives you an ability and power to do everything that you wanted to do in your class component in a functional way, like in much more. Because I faced this a lot of times. I used to write things because there was no state, there was nothing. I used to make it a functional component, and then suddenly the product manager comes and says, "Hey, listen, you need to do this." Oh God, I have to change this to class component. So this happens. So this is a good thing which they've come up with. You could also wrap your existing component. So here we saw that we are creating a component inside it, but you could also wrap your existing component. Let's say you have a component which is already there, and you just need to wrap it around React.memo. So it will only render the component when there is a prop change. So these are the last key takeaways before I end. So if you care about your code, use stuff, right? If it suits your use case, then use it. Not because someone said, not because I said in the meetup, you know what, this girl, she said that we should use it. I mean, just see, okay, fits your use case, then use it. Otherwise, if you use it without thinking, or somebody said it, it will be like this. Okay? Thank you.
Time for questions. There should be a lot of questions.
I have a question. What is the coverage for TypeScript for hooks?
I think it's not much. I mean, I have never used, frankly speaking, I don't love TypeScript. So I'm not the right person maybe to answer it. But I don't know. Maybe someone who's using TypeScript?
We're switching to TypeScript, but I think it's not a problem. We are switching our code base from regular JavaScript to TypeScript. So, and it looked like we are currently using a TypeScript compiler, so it looked like
Does it create some problem?
it looked like everything was fine. So I'm not sure yet, 100%, but yeah.
I mean, the best thing about TypeScript is you could always use any.
Yeah, I'm sure that there will not be any problem, but since I haven't used it, I can't say that there will be no problem.
And what about Redux? Like, is there any limitation?
To use with hooks?
Yeah.
I think there's no limitation. But what we are also moving at our company, from Redux we're moving to GraphQL. So, GraphQL and Apollo client takes care of everything. So, I mean, it depends on your company and like how much time you have for the migration stuff, because all these stuff takes a lot of time. So I would say there's no problem using Redux with hooks, no problem at all.
I could relate to the functional components with state.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think there was
what version started supporting hooks?
Sorry?
What version of React?
16.8.
Alright, there's advanced. I see one advanced question there.
Two people?
Yeah, my question is, do you write tests for custom hooks?
Not yet, but we should.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem. That's why I wanted to maybe if you could share experience with it. Thank you.
Not yet. Is there a problem writing test?
I mean, if you're trying to write a test for custom hook, it will immediately fail, saying that there is no React context for this function.
Yeah. I mean, we have never tested yet the hooks. I mean, the migration was the first goal for us.
Yeah, thanks.
So
Yeah.
No, behind you guys.
So you said that wrapper hell is bad, like there's a lot of wrapping in DevTools, so you get distracted by this, and React Memo is the same wrapper, so what's the difference?
But you would not use React Memo every time, right? You would only use when you want to say, okay, this component should not render. This component should only render when props changes. So all your component might not be a pure component.
Okay, and second question, so before there was mixins, yeah, and then JavaScript community moved to long-awaited classes, yeah, and React said, hey, yay, we moved to classes. Now it's hooks. What do you think will be next?
I wish I was done at the moment. The answer to this is, I wish I was done at the moment. I could answer you. I mean, I don't know, but I think the only thing that they're working on currently is to get all of these methods which are still not an alternative in React hooks. Their goal is to first make that available, and then maybe, I don't know, but I think this is the goal that they have for next months. Because they are still, as I spoke before, there are still some methods that are not supported in hooks. So they're still working on that.
Okay, and when the hype will be done, they should create something new.
Yeah, probably. That's how the React ecosystem works.
You're one hype cycle behind.
One hype cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I think the next release, what they're going to get is mostly suspense.
So that's more hype.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe, somewhere around 6 months.
You should.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
You should follow Dan Abramow's Twitter. He writes about the new stuff coming.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a quick question. How do you? So you mentioned that there is no get the right state from props, and I think I saw in Dan Abramow's blog that you can use memo. I think it was
Yes, he did mention, but it's not a very reliable solution.
Okay.
Yeah. You still can use it, but it's not a reliable solution.
And how it's not reliable?
I mean, in terms of when would you use get derived state from props?
Well, basically when you need to map state to props to state, right?
Yes, props to state. But pure component and React Memo works in a way where it only checks, okay, you should render this component only where some props is changed.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't take into consideration, okay, map state to props. So it's a kind of not an alternative, but it works the similar way. But they're still working on the direct stuff that you could use.
Okay.
I think we should wrap this Q&A session up. Thank you.